Good morning. I am Michelle, Medicine with the Metals. It is just myself this morning as Mark is not feeling well, but I am really super excited about this conversation. Mark and I saw Heather on well, we've seen you in a lot of places, but on the series with Lisa Ling, and we have been very excited to meet with you ever since then, and researched you thoroughly and watched all of your things, and you're just a super cool lady. So I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. So welcome. I start with having you introduce yourself.
Well, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. And let's see, to introduce myself, I'm Heather Lee. I've been a therapist for over 30 years. I'm now one of the nation's very first certified and licensed psychedelic assisted psychotherapists. So I'm here in Colorado where I can proudly and legally support people with plant medicine. And I am all mushrooms all the time. So at this point, I literally say that I work for the mushrooms because, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, I mean, once you start seeing the true healing potential in this medicine, it is hard to go back to just straight talk therapy because, the mushrooms really are such incredible healers. So
Mm.
that's what I do. So I do private sessions and I lead retreats. And I just finished a book called The Psilocybin Sessions, which is the first book really written by a licensed facilitator that is just the stories of real women's real healing. I say it's ordinary women's extraordinary healing.
I love that you work with women. I am definitely all about the mushroom as well. I wear this necklace everywhere for years. I've got Mark and I both have the, psilocybin tattooed on our arms. We love all of the medicines, but the mushroom definitely speaks to both of us as well. And I think, like you said, once you hear, if you're listening, you can't unhear.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, I sort of work uniquely just with women, and really it's mostly women over 60. So I
Yeah.
like to say that I'm kind of creating this new rite of passage, well, an ancient rite of passage, but for moving into the age of the sage. So it's just this
I love that.
beautiful awakening of women's wisdom as we move into these years of being the sages with this lovely, lovely medicine.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
I find that mostly we work with, women mostly and women. I'm gonna be 55 this year and I can't wait. And I think that this is the age. And I have my beliefs on why that is, but and I have so many questions for you, but let's start with that. Why do you think that is?
You know, uh, what I'm finding is just there's so many women that come to my work that just really they're feeling this whisper of there's something more. They've gotten disconnected, lost parts of themselves along the way, caretaking others, being in that role. And there's always this whisper of this intuition and inner wisdom, right? I mean, it's so hardwired in us as women to have that connection to our inner intelligence and that inner wisdom. And I just think it's like they're heeding the call. The whisper is there, and now they're sort of reading about and seeing and that this medicine can open that portal. And I'm just finding that women are just they're when they read about this, when they touch on it, they just know that there's something there that I need to access. So it's sort of a reclaiming and a remembering and a
Mm.
returning to these parts of ourself that are so innately there. I mean, I just hear time and time again from the women that it's like, God, I want to remember the magic. Like this just helps me pull the curtain back and see the sparkle again and connect to that other sort of level of consciousness where, magic does exist. Everything is really this sparkly, beautiful world. I mean, there's some darkness in there to work with as well, but it's this reclaiming of your whole self, not just the parts that are in this realm, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, and I love how you
Okay.
you talk about the remembering. My dear friend Ken Stanley, who is an integration coach, he talks about the remembering all the time, and he always says, "Michelle, the beauty is in the remembering." I cry a lot, so you'll have to deal with that.
I do
But
too. We both might cry.
it's as I cry out of love and beauty, but and I that resonates with me so much because it
Yeah.
is in the remembering, and maybe that's what it is also, we have time now, whereas maybe we didn't have
Yeah.
time before to sit still.
And we carry so much stuff, we schlep all this stuff from our past, emotional baggage and memories that we keep sort of replaying in our mind and ruminating. There's just stuff that we carry that we can release what doesn't serve us any longer. We can really put this stuff down. And I think, doing this medicine work sort of gives you this mirror into what you're carrying and lets you kind of look at, okay, I'm carrying that too heavily and I don't need to carry that anymore. I can put that down. And when I do, I have this more spaciousness and capacity for joy and presence and the
Mm.
what's next and manifesting new things and more things. I think we really all schlep a lot of stuff from our past that really we don't need to keep carrying, and it's not even real. It's just it's hidden in the dark corners of, like, memory, but it's heavy and sticky, and it weighs us down.
And it
I worked
becomes
recently.
bigger,
Oh, bigger, yeah,
bigger and bigger
and we're
over the
so afraid of
years.
it, and we think that if we open the door and look at it, it's gonna overwhelm us, and it's like, no, if you shine the light on it, it dissipates. It loses its power, you know?
I do. I really do. And I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were going to say you were just started
No.
working on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like just a quick little example. I had, a woman that came on one of our retreats and she was sure she was there to work on that she had just gone through a divorce and she was retired and she sort of wanted to look at all of that. And what came up, and as you know, right, in this medicine, we don't always know what's gonna come up and the most crazy little things, but the things that are weighing us down that maybe we don't even know are there, but the mushrooms are like, yeah, let's bring that up and let's release that. She on her journey, she said, "It was the craziest thing, Heather." She said, "All of a sudden, I was back and I was 14 and I was with the boy that I lost my virginity with. And, it hadn't been a great experience. Like I did feel a little pressured. I never really thought too much about it. But she's like, but in the journey, like I realized that really impacted my whole adult sexuality and relationships with men the way that I lost my virginity." And she said, "But I had this healing experience. There I was, 14, in the bedroom with that boy who
Mhm.
apologized, and I realized what I needed to release, and, like, that was healed, and I had no clue that was gonna be something that would come up on my journey. I didn't even know I was still carrying that." But she's like, "Wow, that just answers questions, and I feel so much, like, more in charge of how I might move into a next relationship in life." So the mushrooms find these little things that we don't even know are the things that maybe we can release.
And it's about becoming empowered. She
Yeah.
became empowered with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. That is beautiful. Well, I have so many more questions, but let's start with how you got started because you really got a traditional start at Harvard, if I'm incorrect, and you also taught at UVA or you were at UVA somewhere. I was in school in Richmond, and UVA was big school, so I
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
UVA well. But that is, I believe. But I'd love to hear about how you got started.
Okay. And I will correct, I did a post-grad training at Harvard at the Mind Body Medical Institute. I did not go to Harvard for my undergrad. But so my undergrad is I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I've been a mental health therapist in multiple capacities for many, many moons. And then I did a post-grad training in the mind body medicine. But at UVA, I was at the University of Virginia Medical Center, and they had a midlife women's health center, which is really kind of a unique specialty. And so I was developing all of the wellness programs for the Midlife Women's Health Center. So much of my career has been focused on women's mental health, women's integrative wellness. So that's kind of where my focus has always been. But again, as you say, pretty classically trained as a mental health professional.
Sure.
However, my freshman year in college in 1981, when I came from Westchester, New York, a pretty conservative little suburb of the Wall Street set, came to school out in Colorado, fell in with some lovely hippie friends who were like, "Oh, we're going to eat some mushrooms and go out in the mountains today." Now, I had never done psychedelics, but I'm owe such a debt of gratitude to these friends because they were not doing mushrooms to party. They were doing it as a spiritual practice. And everybody was reading Ram Dass and Carlos Castaneda and, lots of sort of study of Native American spiritualities. And so we were really doing these medicines in nature to open us up to that interconnectedness with our spirituality, with nature, with each other. So that was really my entree to psilocybin, and then sort of used it on and off in that more spiritual capacity, but always kind of knowing this is like really powerful stuff. And so then, when the opportunity came up to train and become certified in psychedelic assisted psychotherapy as like a grown ass woman to be a modality, I was like, well, this is so perfect because in my practice, I'd always been about, it had never been about me and something I was doing to fix people. It was about how do I get people to access their own inner wisdom, dream work, shamanic journey work, breath work. Like I was always trying to guide people inward to connect with that. So it made a lot of sense to me to study in this modality. I'm so grateful that the training that I did was a year-long training, studying with some of the lead researchers at Hopkins, NYU, London Imperial. So it was really a fabulous deep dive. And then as soon as I finished that training, I flew myself down to Jamaica for 4 months and led psilocybin retreats down there to do a deep dive in doing the clinical work with this medicine. So that's kind of how I got to where I am.
And how long ago was that? How long ago did you do that year-long training?
So that was in 2022. And
Okay.
that was I was in the very first cohort of this certification program. And here in Colorado, so I was certified for several years working in the unregulated model. So in Colorado, we have Proposition 122, which says anybody over 21 can buy mushrooms, grow mushrooms, eat mushroom. You can work with mushrooms. You just that's unregulated, but it's totally legal. So totally legal. And now we have a regulated model where there's licensed healing centers, licensed facilitators, licensed growers. So in other words, the government's got their hand in the thing now.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
I have a house. I'm not from Colorado, but I lived in
Yeah.
Colorado for quite a while, and we've got a house in Denver that
Okay.
at one point we had some mama dose. That's the
Yeah.
address basically that we used for mama dose, and now we're getting ready to do some more things there. Colorado is a beautiful place. Where are you?
Yeah. I'm in Boulder.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
And it is what a great place to land for exactly what you're doing. I mean, the government has its hand in it now. How does that feel?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think it's good that they're trying to create, obviously safety is the primary emphasis there. However, whenever you get the government involved, things can be a little clunky. I think right now in this early rollout phase of the regulated model, it's a little bit clunky. It can make things a little more cost prohibitive for folks. Um, so I think we have yet to see. I mean, there's only a handful of licensed centers so far in Colorado. I have the 22nd license in the state as a facilitator. Um, but again, people can work in the regulated model, but uh, anyone over 21 can also be consuming mushrooms and can have somebody support them in a harm reduction model. So there's a little of both.
So the idea is that everybody is growing their own. There's no sale of psilocybin.
There can be no sale, correct. There can be no exchange of money for medicine in the state of Colorado. That is the verboten part. So you can gift and share. It's a little funny.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I
Yeah.
get it. Or you become a church. We did that as well, just as that extra, layer. Um,
Yes.
creating all different kinds of things if you're not in Colorado, especially
Right.
we've sort of become masters in the past 3 years about how to get through get through, the
Yeah.
banks, the payment process, all the people that are trying to shut us down
Uh-huh.
constantly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
you think about it's just so crazy to me, right? Because it's this little fungus, right? It's this little mushroom. And here we're so uppity. And I think back to in Michael Pollan's, I think it was his first book, where, at one point apples were illegal because people were making moonshine. So it was illegal to grow apples. I mean, it's just there's a certain kookiness to these things, right? So
There's a lot of kookiness to it, but, we all know at the end of the day what that's really about and
Of
why
course.
the so-called baton was put down, and then, we
Yeah.
we feel the same way that it's being picked back up right now, or
Yes.
or over the last several years. How have you seen in the past, um, just say even 5 years, how have you seen things change as far as people's attitudes and women? I mean, women that you're working
Yeah.
with, how has that shift been in, say, the last 10 to 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a huge shift because I think more and more these stories about the healing power of this medicine, and a lot of it with the veterans that's making it into the mainstream news. But I think, the more that these research studies are in the mainstream, stuff coming out of Hopkins, NYU, I think it opens, there's a lot of unlearning we have to do with the general public, right? That like the war on drugs stuff, that message got through. So I see it and I have to say that I think I work in a little bit of a bubble because first of all, I'm here in Boulder. I'm in Colorado where it's legal. My whole circle of professionals are people that are, in this space. But I have, family on the East Coast in the medical model world that think what I'm doing is not real science, not real medicine, you know. So there's still an uphill battle and it feels very pocketed in different parts of the country where this is more, accepted. But
Mhm.
but I think what I'm seeing because I do a lot of podcasts, I've just written this book. I feel really, I mean, as much as I love doing the actual work, I feel almost more like fired up about really getting out and trying to educate the consumer, like let people know what this is because there's so much, as I said, sort of unlearning and demystifying. Well, I did a talk last night, and one of the first things I always say is, and I show this bar graph, that shows the safety profile of various different medications and things. Psilocybin has like the highest safety profile of almost anything you could put in your body, higher than like taking an Advil or having a glass of wine. Alcohol actually has the worst safety profile, highest levels of addiction, death, disease, illness. Psilocybin is so incredibly safe, safer than anything in your bar or medicine cabinet, barring a couple of, contraindications. So this is what gets me fired up to try to go out there and inform people that this is not a dangerous, scary, bad drug if done in the right context.
They did a good job. They did their job back in the
Mhm.
'60s and '70s and '80s, the war on
Yeah,
drugs and this is your brain and this is your brain on drugs. And I mean, they scared the
yeah.
shit out of everybody, right? They scared
Right.
the shit out of my
Yeah,
parents and said, well, my parents
yeah,
were hippies, so it was a little bit different. But they scared people, and
yeah,
therefore me growing up a '70s kid and I remember those commercials, like the
yeah,
lady jumping out the window in the frying pan with the
right.
egg, and they did a good job.
Absolutely. They did a good job. I was scared shitless at the beginning, right? Like even as I said, those early experiences with my little hippie friends, luckily were like out in nature and in a safe set and setting that I didn't even know what that was back then. But I do find that, that's part of the preparation why it's so important to prepare people because we still do have that little messaging. So you have to let people know when you drop into this medicine, when you release control of your mind and you let yourself go into this non-ordinary state, you're not going crazy. That's not a bad thing. What's going on is like a psycho-spiritual exploration of this other level of consciousness. There's a lot of that reframing and educating people because it's easy to, I think that's why people have anxiety at the very beginning of a medicine session. If you've never done it, it's like, oh my God, I'm going crazy because that's
Mhm.
what they told us. Not, oh my God, I'm getting enlightened. I'm going into like the psycho-spiritual realm, right? It's a shift.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's an
Yeah.
enormous shift.
Yeah.
I got so excited by what you were saying, I forgot what I was gonna ask you. It's what does your family think? What does your family think?
That's funny you should say that. My mother-in-law is here right now, and I think, um, I think I don't think they know what to make of it. I don't think, I have a brother-in-law who's a surgeon, and I think they think this is this is federally illegal. This isn't real hard science. So it's, I think there are members of my family that are like, you go, Heather, support me fully and get
Yeah.
it. And then there's members of my family that are much more conservative, do not really understand this. And it's a bit of a challenge. So,
Yeah. It's that stigma, the stigma is strong. I mean,
mhm,
I came into these medicines, the first one I did was ayahuasca, and with, however many years of sobriety, I mean, almost a couple of
yeah,
decades, and
yeah,
it was so strong in my mind that, like, I cannot put any mind-altering substance into my body,
yeah,
and the stigma even after I did ayahuasca, and I remember one of my kids my father sorry, one of my kids,
yeah,
their father was talking to me, and he was saying that she should do microdose psilocybin. And
yeah,
even after I had begun waking up, I was like, "Are you fucking crazy? Like, that's
yeah,
crazy. Why would she take psilocybin every day?
yeah,
That's the craziest thing I ever heard in my life." The stigma is really strong.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
takes
we're
it.
part of, you and I here having this conversation. We're part of that trying to change that stigma and letting people see and hear you and I normal. I think we're kind of normal women,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
if there's
yeah.
such a thing as normal, but like having these conversations, this is part of what needs to happen to just get more people to. And so now if I could just segue to my book. So,
Please,
not to do a plug
please.
for it, but the reason I wrote the book is a collection of 10 stories of real women and the experiences they had on psilocybin and the healing that they had. And it's not about me. The book is not about me. I was really clear. I was like, I want these stories to stand alone because that's what it's about. It's about the healing that real women have on this medicine. My publisher was like, "Oh, I think you should put some stuff in about this, that, and the other thing." I said, "I really want to keep that to the minimal. I just want these stories to stand for themselves." And so that really, I also worked with this publisher who's kind of, she's pretty spiritual herself. And at one point I was having a little bit of that writer's block and we did a guided meditation. And I swear to God, you'll love this, Michelle. What came to me was like, it's like I almost heard the mushroom say, we don't have hands. We can't write a book. You have to write it for us. So I like to think that but so these stories, I think these stories are, like I said, it's ordinary women's extraordinary experiences. It's the woman who's a teacher. It's the woman who, is the divorcee. It's the mom who lost her kid to fentanyl. It's the
Oof.
mom who lost her 2-year-old to cancer. It's the woman who got a cancer diagnosis. These are real women doing this medicine and having these like just these insights and ahas that help them move and carry things differently. And so that's what I was like, I gotta put a book out there that's not about how to do psychedelic therapy. Like, I didn't need to write that book. I'm like, I just want people to hear the stories and know like what this really looks like, feels like, and how it
Do you
helps
have the
people
book
heal.
there with you? Was it just released?
It was just released. I don't have a copy of it right with me. It's called The Psilocybin Sessions. It's
Mm.
on Amazon now, so we can put a link to it
Yep,
afterwards.
yep.
But
Yeah, we
and it's,
definitely will.
it's short and it's an easy read. It's ten short stories that are just real women's healing. I'll tell you one of them real quick. If you
Yeah,
can I quickly
please.
share one?
Please,
I
please
worked
take
with
your
a
time.
woman.
Share as many as you like.
Well, I think they give an example. You and I, we've done the medicine. You know how the medicine speaks to you in like images and symbols and metaphors and stories. And that's where the healing comes because you actually, you're having an experience. It's not like you're having a thought. You're actually like having experience on the medicine of something. So I was working with this one woman who, when she was 10, her mom was hit by a car in front of her. So she lost her mom at a very young age. Big trauma, big, big, big trauma.
Right, right. Big
But
T.
she came to me in her 40s and she said, "No, I just feel like it's flat. I feel like life is kind of flat. I feel like I'm just going through the motions and I really want to feel like more alive again. And I'm really interested in exploring the medicine." And I said, "Well, you know," she shared about her mom. And I said, "That's a pretty big trauma. Do you think, it could be a part of your experience?" And she said, "No, I have spent my life in therapy working on that. I have completely like worked that through. I'm pretty sure that's not going to come up for me at all." And I said, "Okay, well, I trust that the medicine, whatever meets you is meant for you. Let's just hold space and see what." Anyway, on the medicine, the first part of her journey was completely like in this magical wonderland where everything was sparkly and alive and magical. And it helped her recapture that what she was looking for from medicine, which is like seeing the magic and everything again. But then as she was telling me, she said, then this other thing happened in the journey that I didn't expect. And I said, what was that? And she said, well, I found myself standing like I was like looking out over this big field and the sky was really, really clear blue. But all of a sudden, all these clouds, big puffy clouds started to form. And I'm looking, thinking, gosh, what are these clouds? She said, I felt hands on my shoulder. I could smell my mother. I remember her perfume. Like I could smell the essence of my mom. I knew it was her standing behind me with her hands on my shoulders. And she whispered in my ear, forgive me. And she said, all of a sudden, the clouds spelled the word forgive. And in that moment, she realized the one thing she hadn't worked through ever. She was so fucking pissed at her mother for leaving her. And no, none of the therapists had let her work through anger at her mother who had died horrifically in front. And in that one moment, hearing her mother say, forgive me, and seeing the clouds spell forgive, that piece, and she came out, she's like, now I feel really healed around my mom. I thought I was, but now I know. And I checked in with her like a month later to see how she was doing. And we were doing an integration session like a month later. And I said, how are you kind of like staying connected to that learning? Did you, make art with the word forgive or whatever? And she said, Heather, you know what I did? I got the word forgive tattooed on my shoulder right where I felt my mom's hand.
Wow.
I know. Now, I didn't
Every hair
orchestrate
on my
that.
body standing up.
This is all of this work is every hair on my body standing up. And I didn't do that. I didn't like do the talk therapy and figure out
Mhm.
like her own inner wisdom, her own somehow knew how to unlock that for her. And these are the things that I see that I'm like, I need to tell the people so that they understand how this medicine can really help heal these little things that are trapped.
It's about to me, it always comes back to empowerment and
Yeah.
empowering and unlocking what is already
Yeah.
there, and the mushroom is
Yes.
just showing us, and you're facilitating that, and it's beautiful,
Yeah.
and I feel the same way that you do as far as, I'm here definitely to be a voice. I
Yeah.
mean, we work with mushrooms, obviously, with Mama Dose and are deep, deep, deep into psilocybin. We work with a lot of medicines, but
Yeah.
psilocybin is for certainly
Yeah.
our medicine, but man, there's so much to it. W where did you find the women who did this? Did you have ceremony with them and then wrote the book, or was it women just talking about stories that they had had previously?
These are all women that I've worked with. These are all clients, women that I've worked with. Again, I don't really go looking for
Yeah.
they find me. You
Yep.
know how that works, right? It's
Yep.
the mycelium of the I do a lot of podcasts, so people hear me there or if, I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't even know. And
Yeah.
honestly, and I also say that this work, like sitting here and talking to you and having the book and doing this work, like I just feel like I'm part of something way bigger than me that I'm not even I'm just sort of in service of something that is like way bigger than me. And all these women that I work with and this awakening that I'm seeing, and the ripple effect of all these women kind of like pulling the curtain back and this just wisdom awakening in women there's something going on that is so much bigger than me, and I know you know what I'm talking about, that I can't even put words to it, but there's something about this collective rise of, I think, women's wisdom and consciousness that is much, much needed right now on this planet at this time, and the mushrooms are part of it, and somehow I am part of being in the path of helping people get the mushrooms or something. Yeah,
And the gratitude that I feel
yeah,
every single day for that is
yes,
just fucking enormous. How do
totally.
I every
Totally.
day I say to Mark, like, how do
Yeah,
I get to do this? How is this my life? How do
I
I
know.
get to do this? How did I get called and listened? Because,
Yeah,
I believe I've been called to a lot of things in my life and I didn't
yeah,
choose to listen to it. And
true.
this is something happens, right? Something happens with all the medicines, but we're talking about psilocybin. And
Yeah.
there's a calling, right? The medicine
Yeah,
calls to you. Maybe you hear something, maybe you read something, maybe you
yeah,
see something, and then all of a sudden the thought is there, and then you can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop thinking about it, and the call will not go away. I believe that.
yeah, 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 and I think, it's funny, I just I call so I got the URL Medicine Woman Retreats, and then I got a lot of heat I got a lot of heat though, because people were like, "Well, you're a white woman from like a, who are you to call yourself medicine wo" and so I gotta have say, I was like, medicine woman is an archetype. Medicine woman archetype goes across continents and cultures. I mean, my heritage is Scottish, but believe you me, there were women in the Scottish Highlands who knew about different plants as medicine, and they most of them met their fate as being burned as witches. I mean, this collective of women as the medicine keepers, I think, and I love the fact that, I mean, I'm from like a preppy suburb of Westchester. And, look at me. I don't look like a super hippie chick. So, what's beautiful about that is I'm bringing the medicine to like the country club ladies, right? Like I'm bringing
Right.
them,
Right.
and I love that I'm the portal for women who might not want to go do an ayahuasca journey in the jungle, they might, but they'll be like, "Oh, you're doing this at that beautiful bed and breakfast, and there's gonna be, like, gourmet food," there's so I
Whatever
sort of
gets
joke
them
when those
there.
people. That's right, and when people were giving me shit about medicine woman retreats, my joke was, "Well, you know what? It was a better URL than middle-aged, middle-class, white, cis psychedelics."
I love it. Well, listen, it's medicine women, and you are a medicine woman. And I remember the
Yeah,
first time somebody who was really a medicine woman, who's one of my mentors, and this woman is just unbelievable. And she said to me, something, we're just in conversation, and she called me a medicine woman, and I was like, well, I'm not a medicine
yeah,
woman. Like I help people
yeah,
microdose, and I help people to get to this, and we've got mama dose, and we have the plant medicine path, and my whole life is medicine, but I'm not a
yeah,
medicine woman. And she's like,
right,
think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. And I,
yeah,
like you, am a white woman from a privileged Southern, white all girls
yeah,
school. Everybody went
yeah, yeah,
to UVA after that. Everybody I went to school. My brother is a doctor at Johns Hopkins University. Now I've got pink hair and braids. And I've changed a lot.
yeah,
But I've
yeah,
also, at the end of the day, gone back to who I really am.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
it's a beautiful thing. Medicine
yeah.
does bring us home to our authenticity and who we really are, and that remembering, reclaiming, and reconnecting to that. How yeah, it's beautiful.
Being able to be that portal for that
Yeah,
group, right? And I'm very
yeah,
familiar with that group.
yeah,
I and it's a beautiful group, but it's
yeah,
challenging. And but to
yeah,
be able to be the portal for that, and that you bring this sense of this sort of validity that people are
yeah,
looking for, and that's okay. I mean, that part
yeah,
is beautiful, but I always say it's okay, whatever brings people to the medicine, it doesn't matter to
I
me.
agree.
However they got here, it doesn't matter to me.
I agree, it's like read the room. I know when I'm in an audience where I need to start with, like, all the research from Johns Hopkins and NYU, and I know when I'm in the room with the people that I can talk about, this is psycho-spiritual stuff that connects us to our the divine and opens the portal to the you gotta read the room and be able to speak the language that works for the audience, so to speak, right?
Yeah, yeah, well, absolutely, for sure. I've talk and a lot as well, and it is all
Yeah,
about reading the room. And
yeah,
my family thinks I'm nuts, like
yeah,
fucking crazy, and that's okay. But they've also, at the same time, watched this transformation that has
yeah,
been, they see me at my most authentic self, doing what I'm meant
yeah,
to do, and just joyfully happy, and they see that
yes.
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And it's in the, again, I mean, I'm not a researcher and I don't need all those facts. And I say that in my book too. Like the proof is in for me, it's in the quality of people's lives. So these women that come to me with whatever this, a pain or whatever, they alchemize that into this personal power, right? And I get to hold space for that, create the safe container for that, but it's seeing how it truly helps people heal. I don't need I don't need charts and graphs. I just need somebody to say, "Oh my god, Heather, I feel so much lighter," or I feel so I have such more capacity for joy or presence or whatever. That's all I need. I'm just here to help the people find that in themselves and have that awakening.
And you've watched thousands of women have that
Yes.
awakening. I mean, there's no
Yes.
denying that. That's all the proof I need
Right.
as well. There's absolutely
Yeah.
no denying that, like you said, from the
Yeah.
women that I've worked with, from, who have all become now like my dear friends and sisters,
Yeah.
who, the first lady who I met who lost her son to fentanyl poisoning, to somebody whose mother had Alzheimer's, and she was dealing
Mhm.
with that, to somebody who had a 2-year-old and was losing her mind. And I don't want to go take pills. I don't want
Yeah.
to go take pills. What do I do about this? So it's every age group, everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said something, you mentioned like the sisterhood. And I think, I often say like on our retreats, the mushrooms are medicine, but the community and the connection is just as powerful of a medicine. We're also sort of isolated and disconnected, and that there's this power in women coming together and supporting each other. And I mean, that is medicine too, the connection and community. And I feel that and hear that time and time again. And these women who come, and a lot of them are like, "Oh, I'm not really a girl's girl, or I'm not really a groupie kind of person. I can't believe I even came." But then they find this sisterhood of like-minded women who are, the curious, the seekers, the spiritual. Like they're like, "Oh, you're my people. Like this is my tribe. Like this
Yeah.
is cool. I've always, you know,
And
yeah,
you go through an experience like that with somebody and that's it. Or somebody has gone through an experience like you and I are talking, we just know that each other's knows, and it's an
yeah,
automatic like, "Mm, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, there's a knowing."
yeah."
Yeah,
And even
there's
the women that have had really hard journeys, like, let's not, truth is you can have some really hard journeys. I've had some very difficult journeys, into the deep, dark places. But even with those dark journeys, like, with proper integration, there's like, there's gifts in that, right? And it's okay for us to, I think we also live in a culture where we're like, oh, let's just stay in the shiny, happy place.
yeah,
Well, that's not reality.
yeah.
Reality is there's darkness too, and it's part of the journey. And how can we sort of embrace that and have a different relationship to that? Because there is this ability to sit with both things, for things to be, really, I just worked with a woman who, as you meant, like her mother has Alzheimer's that came on very quickly. And she's a young gal who's just about to start having children. And she's
Oh,
sitting at this place of like, oh my God, but like I thought my mom was going to help me like have my kids in this lifetime. And now I'm losing my mom. So she's in this really complicated place. And on her journey, she got this real gift of, wow, like I can sit with the pain of losing my mom in the way that I've had her, because in that pain is the depth of the love I have for my mom. So I can feel both. The reason I have the pain is because I have the depth of the love. And I realize I can kind of sit and hold both of those at the same time. And it's this kind of okay place to be, with recognizing both of those things. Sometimes we learn to sit with the duality of the dark and the light.
God, I swear I was just gonna say that. I mean, the duality of the dark and the
Yes.
light was just gonna come out of my mouth,
Oh,
and you are also showing them that it's okay to be uncomfortable. I mean, we're taught from day
yeah,
one not to be uncomfortable. It's not okay to be uncomfortable. It's not okay to be uncomfortable. It's never okay to be uncomfortable. Whatever it is, whether it's a headache or we don't talk about
yeah,
that. We don't do, it's not okay to be uncomfortable. It is okay to be
yeah,
uncomfortable. And for myself and mostly everybody that I've seen and met and that has gone through this or gone through anything, the growing happens in the darkest of times. It's not generally
yeah,
in the light. Not that beautiful things don't happen in the light, but it is in my darkest moments that I'm finding the biggest gifts of empowerment. I always come back to that word, but that's really what it's
yeah,
about.
yeah, it is. Yep.
Mhm.
And even I
What
had, go ahead.
No, 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 please.
Well, I was just gonna say, I worked with a woman who had a very challenging journey, and this was an interesting, she was it was like a corporate women's retreat. And so the leader of this sort of corporate group thought this was a great idea for all of these women and business leaders to do this medicine. Well, you also, as we know, you got to kind of feel called. We can't kind of do it because somebody says this is what we're going to do on our
Yeah.
field trip.
Yeah, yeah.
So this one woman was kind of, I had screened everybody, and she had said, "I did mushrooms once years ago and I had a really friggin' bad trip and I'm really not that interested." I said, "Then, you don't do this if you don't feel like you want to do this, and that's not a good set and setting."
No.
A month later when the retreat rolled around, she goes, I've been thinking about it a lot and I really do want to do it." And I was like, "You sure?" And she was like, "No, I really, really do." And I said, "Well, game day call, on medicine day, if you don't feel it, say so." She's like, "No, I really do." So anyway, she did the medicine, had a very challenging experience, what you would call a challenging journey, really dark, really heavy, not happy camper at all. When she came out, it took, several hours to kind of ground her, because she really got really sort of dissociated from herself, felt really disconnected. It's, what somebody else might say, oh, I had ego death. It was so lovely. Well, for her, it was like, oh my God, I lost connection to all the things that define me. And it was frigging terrifying. And, but as we did the processing of it, her big takeaways were, okay, so I don't want to ever succumb to peer pressure. I'm not sure why I'm climbing this corporate ladder with these bunch of broads who are like all about like getting higher in the corporate world. Like, I don't even really like these women. And I had the choice of being like home with my family and being with my 6 and 8-year-old this week. And I came here and what I really wanted to do was be home with them. And she's like, my takeaway is I need to trust my intuition. I need to listen to my inner voice. I need to not feel pressured by others. I need to reassess some of where I'm placing my values. And I'm grateful for that journey because it taught me that there's no place like home. There's no place like home. And I was like, there you go. You actually got something great from a very challenging journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so true, and look at what came of it for her. Something completely probably
Yeah.
unexpected for her.
What?
Yeah. Wow. Well, would you be comfortable telling us about one of your the word profound is thrown around so much, but one of your more outstanding journeys, whether it was a difficult one or a
Yeah.
joyful one. I
Yeah.
myself
Well,
have not. I go deep and dark. I have joyful ones
you know
as
what?
well, but
That's so funny. I would say a lot of mine are kind of like have a darkness to them. And then I work with these clients who do nothing but laugh the whole time and have like I'm like, when do I get one of those?
I
I
know,
want one of
me
those.
too. I'm exactly the same way. Yes.
Yeah, it's funny, right? But we still feel really called to do the work, and I love holding space, and most of my people have really beautiful, joyful journeys. But anyway, that's a side note.
And what a
So what
journey it
happened?
is just to hold that space. That
Totally,
alone
totally.
is
Yeah,
medicine.
absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, so how I part of how I came my initial journey into this medicine work with the license is an interesting story unto itself. So I completed this year-long training, again, with research at Hopkins, NYU. It was really a deep, big training. At the end of it, my husband and I planned to like go to Europe for a month and do some traveling, sort of to like, at the end of this year-long intensive training. It's like, let's go do some travels. So being the responsible grown-up that I am, I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to travel, I should probably like go to the dentist, get my mammogram, like do the things, right? So I did all that. And then the week that they called me on, I think they called me on a Monday, I got my certificate, right, of completion. Like, it's like, you did it. You graduated. Here's your
Wow.
certificate. The very next day, I got a phone call. You have breast cancer.
Oh,
I was like,
my God.
yeah. So I was like, well, this is one of those times in life that I don't think that's a coincidence. I think I'm supposed to do something with this medicine related to cancer and my cancer journey. So literally, I get that diagnosis and I took 5 grams of mushrooms. Now, without knowing, like, I didn't know I knew nothing except that they just called me and said, "You tested positive for breast cancer." My mother died of breast cancer, like, 15 years prior. So, I don't know if I'm coming or going or, like, what the fuck lays ahead
Yeah.
for me, but I take 5 grams of mushrooms, and that was a really deep, dark journey where I danced with the devil, faced my mortality. But here's what came out of it. Like, part of the journey was I got this deep download of your cancer is fear turned cellular. And you have these patterns of fear based thinking, which indeed I did. Came by it naturally from my mother had been sort of a catastrophizer, a lot of fear-based stuff around men and money, which made a lot of sense. I was kind of in a new marriage. I had been financially abused by my husband. I was fearful this new husband was like gonna, your cancer is fear turned cellular. You need to change your patterns of fear-based thinking as part of your healing and part of where you have dis-ease in your
Mm.
body and your life. That rung so true to me. And I was like, okay, I've got something I can do. It made me talk about empowered, right? I knew the doctors could like take my boobs off, do the whole thing. But now I knew what I could do. I had something that I could engage in and feel really empowered that part of my healing was to change these fear based patterns of thinking, do more meditation, be more aware of that internal dialogue, really work on some things in my relationship. So that felt really, I was like, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to bring to this work, is like, this is something people can do this medicine early in a diagnosis, not just end of life with cancer or deep in your cancer. Really early on, it can help inform your own psycho spiritual energetic healing plan, right? And then the other
Yeah.
thing that I felt like the mushroom said was, you need to go into the wilderness, find healing water, and bathe your body in healing water to prepare for all the surgeries that lay ahead. So I talked to the
Mm.
doctors. I booked a double mastectomy, which was like 3 weeks out. So I had a 3 week window. My husband and I have a Sprinter van. We live in Colorado. We hopped in the van. I said, honey, I don't know where we're going, but I need to find healing water and I need to bathe my body in it. So
Yeah.
we hopped in our van. We went to Utah. We turned down some little road at the very, it was starting to get dark. The camp host goes, "Oh, I got one spot left. It's perfect for your van." We parked the van. He goes, there's a waterfall if you hike in. I said, "You're fucking shitting me. There's a waterfall?" And he goes, "But it's a little late in the day. I wouldn't advise starting the hike in." I said, "No, we're starting the hike in." So everybody else is hiking out. So when we get to the waterfall, and I kid you not, I will send you a picture afterwards. There's water coming down from on high. We're in this canyon of like red sandstone. Like, this waterfall is going into this absolutely turquoise pool of water. I stripped down butt naked. I got in that water. There was nobody around. I'm like, oh my God, I'm preparing my body, this healing water. So that I fast forward, I tell all my doctors about this. They're looking at me like I got 6 heads, but I'm like, you don't understand. This psychedelic medicine work is such a powerful additional tool to my healing because it's about the psycho-spiritual component of my healing. And so that's my story and I'm sticking to it. That's, yeah,
Wow, what a
powerful,
story. Very
powerful
powerful.
stuff.
Listen, I've always been a believer of, disease in the brain and it is disease in the body. And I've known
Yeah.
that for a really long time. And to you're right, because everybody focuses on the end of life when they get a
Yeah.
diagnosis. But what about when you initially get the diagnosis and what can that mean? And I
Yeah.
mean, it's not funny at all, but it's humorous that the first thing you did was go take 5 grams of mushrooms, which is,
Wait.
as most people know, a heroic dose and quite a large amount of psilocybin, and what a great immediate first thing to do. So that disease of the mind is disease in the body, and I've just known that for a long time, really just known that for a long time. And but after entering down this path, whatever you want to call it, into this
Mhm.
realm, it is just so true. So, but I was also giggling over going and taking 5 grams as your first initial. Put the phone down and go take 5 grams of psilocybin, which is quite a bit of
Yeah.
psilocybin. It's a heroic
Yeah.
dose. What a brilliant
Yeah.
first thing to do.
Brilliant and brave, I would say. But
Very
yeah, it
brave.
was, yeah. And again, it was one of those times in life where I was like, this is not a coincidence that I just got certified and then I got a cancer diagnosis. So it really, as also then as part of my whole cancer journey, it was like I just really felt like I was on a mission to see how I could incorporate this medicine work into my cancer journey, knowing that it would then be something that I could share with and help other women with. And so then I did a free retreat for 3 women with cancer that was turned into a beautiful documentary called Last Journey that, I just actually showed. I'm traveling around showing this documentary because it really shows how this medicine can work with people with cancer early on, late stage, across the board. But it's another area. I try to do a free retreat for women with cancer every year. One just me, pay it forward, give back.
What beautiful work you do. Where can we see the documentary for people that would like to see it? Is it out and available?
Right now it's not. I'm sort of traveling with it, but I think I'll have it probably up on my YouTube channel at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I love all the things that you are in and do and are a part of, because it's just such an
Mm,
it's about those conversations, just like you said, it's about
absolutely.
conversations. One more thing I
Yes.
wanna I wanna I wanna talk about, and then I would love to have you back. People lose interest and they hang up after a certain amount of time. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
but I do want to touch on something else, but I would love to have you back and talk. And
I'd
I
love that.
very much look forward to being friends, because
Me
wow, do we have a
too.
lot in common. A
Yeah.
lot in common. My question is
Yeah.
about I wanna talk about integration a little bit because, I heard you talk about it earlier, and I wrote it down because I really did wanna talk about it. Integration is for I always say is the most important part. It's the
Yeah.
pre-integration, the post-integration, being down on the mat is the smallest part of what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
the catalyst. And it
Yeah.
is the integration that is everything. It is the whole reason that my husband and I got started in doing what we do.
Wow.
Is because we wanted to provide a platform for information, education, and integration because it's the most
Yes.
important part. What are your thoughts on integration?
Same as yours, that it is really the most important part. It's where you take all the gems that came through in your journey and you really need to take them and do the meaning making and the how to while you're in that highly neuroplastic state, how are you going to literally like lean into the new patterns of thought, behavior, belief so that you are truly like rewiring your brain from these outdated patterns of thought, behavior, belief, because they're deeply rutted. And so there's sort of that whole, not only psychospiritual, but physiological rewiring of your brain. So, I stay connected to people for at least two integration sessions after I work with them individually, also on our retreats. But because I work with so many people, I can't kind of be everybody's integration therapist
Of
forever.
course.
So I have a lovely repertoire of people that I know do fabulous integration work where I often, will have people connect. And I love for integration, I mean, I do stuff with ecotherapy. I'm really big on nature immersion. I think the mushrooms are nature. Nature is a healer unto itself. So I do a lot of things with ecotherapy practices and getting people to develop a relationship with the whole of nature, not just the mushrooms, but being out and having, a sit spot where you are just one with a part of the environment. So ecotherapy, art therapy, somatic work. I think there's so many ways that we can take what comes through and depending what it is, turn it into an image or a symbol or a dance or a mantra or a meditation, taking just finding ways to stay connected to and understand and be open to the continued sort of wisdom because I find on my journeys, it might be 4 months later that it all starts really like I'll get an aha from a journey, So it's a slow
Yeah.
burn, so to speak. Like it
It could
lands
hit at any
slowly and
time.
yeah, and can hit at any
I
time.
said,
And
holy
I say it
shit.
becomes part of sort of your personal mythology. We're all just living our own myths, right? We're all just living the stories we tell ourselves about this is who I am and this is what the journey is and this is my story. And that's so
Sure.
beautiful. It's so empowering. We get to make up our own narratives kind of about ourselves. And I think with the medicine, it's an opportunity to how do you integrate that into your personal mythology? And then I journeyed to the underworld and I got this wisdom. Like how do we turn that into part of our personal mythology?
Because otherwise, to me, and this is just my thoughts on my journey is really what is the point if I am not
Yeah.
integrating, what is the point? Maybe it was a cool experience, maybe it was a terrifying experience, but whatever. What is the point?
Yeah.
For me, the point is I'm trying to change my life and I'm trying to change the
Yeah.
way I view this world and I'm trying to change the way that I love and all the things. So if I'm not
Yeah.
integrating, what is the point? And you mentioned something interesting in those first that neuroplasticity. In the
Yeah.
first, and you'll know better than I, but however many weeks after that journey are those most important times to change those patterns,
Yeah.
because otherwise, I call it the ski slopes. It's so deeply rutted you can't get out of it, and it is
Yeah.
those first however long that are the most important.
Absolutely. And I would say, as we're speaking, I'm kind of thinking of this, but I think, you know, because of the way our culture is and because of technology and because of like we want everything in like fed to us, like just spoon fed to us in little bite-sized nuggets. We flip through our phones fast. It's just nuggets of fast flashing stuff and we're not doing a lot of like sitting with thoughts and critical thinking and hanging out and being slow and meditative. So there's this piece of it that's needing to change how we even work with our brains, right? I think the medicine calls us back to like let's be really intentional. Let's be really mindful. Let's really think about that. How does that make us feel? Where do we feel it in our body? We're so friggin' disconnected from that way of being with ourselves and the connection between our thoughts and our spirit and our this is even part of the thing. It's bringing us back into that alignment of body, mind, and spirit that we've gotten all lost from.
Some people don't even know what that means. I mean, some people look at me when I start talking about this like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And the magical part though is again, once you've seen and you can't unsee, and then there's the spark is lit. And once that spark is
Yeah.
lit, it can be endless. For me it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, I
Yeah.
also always say it's interesting, as humans, we spend about a third of our life as sleep. Sleep, dream states, is a non ordinary state of consciousness. We are designed to spend almost a third of our life in a non ordinary state of consciousness. That is frigging fascinating. So, I always tell people that as part of sort of my prep with them is like, you're designed to go into states of non-ordinary conscious. It's where we make sense of all the stuff that goes on. We figure out what drawer to put it in so that we can wake up the next day and be ready to face all the stuff that comes at us again. So this is something we're designed to go into non-ordinary states of consciousness. It's built into our system. Pretty
And
cool.
we are this is the era of divine energy. There's just no doubt
Yeah.
about it. We touched on it earlier, but
Yeah.
this is it. And women are coming into this and stepping into their power. And it's incredible. It's incredible to witness, and
Yeah.
it's incredible to be a part of.
It is indeed. And I think it goes to your word that you've used throughout this, which is that empowerment. It's such a different kind of power, isn't it? Like wisdom is probably the most frigging profound power there is. It's not might, it's wisdom. And that's what we're awakening and stepping
Yeah,
into.
incredible. You're doing
Yeah.
beautiful work. If you can
Wow.
remind us of where we can find you, and then if you would come back, I would be honored. I could carry on this
Well, I would
conversation
love that.
forever.
I
Yeah,
would
where
love
can we
that.
find you though?
Yeah. HeatherALee.com. My brand new website just unveiled today. So HeatherALee.com. And the book is on there as well. And there's a free meditation you can download as well. So all sorts of good stuff on HeatherALee.com. Yeah.
Beautiful. We will put it on the plant medicine path
Yeah.
and medicine with the metals as well. Heather, it was really cool
Oh,
meeting you. I look
me
forward
too.
to many more conversations. Thank you for all that you've done, all that you've studied, all the work that you have put into this, all your personal into it, because you can't just train for something like this. You have to be in it. Who's going to listen if you're not? So, thank you for all that you've done and continue to do.
And thank you for having a platform to give more voice because that's such an important part of this as well.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, we will have you back. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.